Chapter 29. Goodbye, so long, farewell. It was a dream come true. Working together, we dug our own well, pulled electrical wire, and put in a septic tank. Within a few months, we had cross-fenced, laid down a gravel driveway, and prepared the ground for the modular home I was hoping we'd buy. Everything was moving along as planned until Russ received a notice from the phosphate company where he worked. Please be informed, we are in the process of reorganizing and will be closed temporarily until further notice. What are they talking about? I wanted to know. What does that mean? I was on the verge of a panic attack when Russ calmed me down. Between my severance pay and unemployment, everything will be fine. So pack your bags. We are going to California. What? Going to California? You can't be serious. What about our property? We can't leave our property. Remember I told you if anything ever happens to my job, we're moving to California. It's not forever. We're coming back, Russ assured me. That would have been music to my ears 6 months ago, but not now. I felt like Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. I imagined my fingers clawing the ground as Russ tried to pull me away. God knew what was best, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6:21. My heart seemed to be bound up in that land. I didn't want to leave, not even for a few weeks. We were so close to moving on. This wasn't the first trip to California. God had laid the groundwork. We knew the routine by heart. I'd be packed up and ready to leave when Russ got off work on a Friday afternoon. The girls would snuggle in between blankets and suitcases in the back of our Subaru station wagon, and we'd drive straight through with just a couple of stops along the way. We'd arrive in California 65 hours later, on Monday morning at about 3 a.m. We'd made this drive every other year for the past 8 years. Stan, Peg, and Andy would visit us in Florida in the opposing years. However, this time, we wouldn't be in a hurry. We'd take our time and sightsee along the way. My body might have been in the car, but my mind never left 36th Street. We stayed with my folks in their 2-bedroom, 1-bath home on Siebold Avenue. It was a little crowded, but we hoped it wouldn't be long before Russ's company reopened. However, that first month passed, and with the second month coming to a close, it became apparent we needed to find a place of our own. One afternoon, my mother-in-law called. I was certain it was the news we were waiting for. I hurried to the extension line after Russ had picked up the phone. Before I could say anything, Pat said, "I knew once she got you out there you wouldn't return." I was hurt. I suppose it seemed that way to her, but she didn't realize I was as anxious to get back as she was to have us. We moved into a duplex on the rougher side of town, which was all we could afford. The two of us began to look for work. Carolyn was right. The Christian schools were for the wealthy. They were more expensive than we could afford, so we enrolled the girls in public school for the first time. Russ found work in a feed store, and I went to work at a local hospital. Our income had dropped considerably, but our expenses had increased. Aunt Peggy was kind enough to take our girls to and from school and babysit till we got home. Kim was in 3rd grade. Jen was in 2nd. On the way home from school one day, Andy told a conversation he'd had with a classmate. He said the boy was Catholic, and he was able to witness to him about the Lord. When he finished his story, Aunt Peggy said, "You know, Catholics are going to heaven just like we are." Kim was stunned. She quickly spoke up, "Well, they might be going to heaven in California, but they are not going to heaven in Florida." We needed to have a discussion about, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast." Ephesians 2, 8 and 9. Obviously, the scriptures were the same, no matter which state we lived in. We had been in California for 8 months with no indication of where we would end up living. I struggled with the uncertainty. I wish we knew if we were supposed to stay in California or go back to Florida. I grumbled to my brother Stan as we sat at my kitchen table. He sighed. I know what you mean. I wish I knew if I was going to live or I was going to die. I was jolted from my daydream into reality. The tears welled up as my question paled compared to his. God had allowed us to be together all these months, and nothing could have been more wonderful. I finally turned everything over to God. He was calming the turmoil that had robbed me of peace since leaving Florida. I wrote in my journal, January 1st, 1983. Dear Lord, thank you for a new year, a new beginning, and a fresh look at our life. You have brought me to the point of peace about going back or staying here. Whatever you and Russ decide, I will be content. 1 Peter 5, 6 and 7 reminded me I needed to humble myself under God's mighty hand, that He may exalt me at the proper time. I needed to cast all my anxiety upon Him, because He cared for me. Soon after having written that note in my journal, a home became available for rent next to my folks. I was excited, as no one cared more about us than my mother. She was like a sponge. She soaked up all the stories I told her spanning the past 8 years while we lived in Florida. Even when repeated, she never seemed to tire of them. One day, I was very upset and complained to her. I made a shirt for Russ as a gift, but it's twice his size. She said she didn't understand what the problem was. I kept insisting, Mom, it was huge. Still sweet and positive, she assured me it would work. Finally, I said, You don't understand. It was so large, Russ and I could both fit in it. Without hesitating, she said, Honey, just open a couple of buttons and you'll be able to see out fine. I couldn't have asked for a sweeter, gentler mom. She loved her family dearly, lavishing hugs and kisses on all her grandchildren. As an adult, I can't remember a harsh word or a bit of gossip that ever passed her lips. She was always cooking and trying to feed everyone who came to visit and hated to see them leave. What I miss the most is spending time with her. She loved to go shopping, stop at garage sales, and look at model homes. There wasn't a day that went by that she didn't make me laugh, whether spending time together or talking on the phone. When I read this plaque, I had to purchase it for her. Mother, to one who bears the sweetest name and adds luster to the same, who shares my joys and cheers when sad, the greatest friend I ever had. Long life to her, for there's no other can take the place of my dear mother.